But then the crucial move occurs, and that's a subtraction move. The average image for the task, looking at faces, from that is subtracted the baseline image to produce a difference image. The difference in the brain in the one condition compared to the other. And in the classical approach, the standard interpretation rests on difference images. So what I've done here is take 3% or so, a small slice of Yishai's data, and do the subtraction. Essentially take the faces and the exposure to faces, images, and subtract from them the baseline images. And as you can see, I think I'm beginning to show where the arrows are pointing those hot spots, those areas of activity that Yishai will ultimately identify, looking at more subjects and more data than I did. I think if I followed her path, in the end, I would be able to replicate exactly her results. And so the images that we see again and again of hotspots in the brain are frequently, not always, but mostly the product of this logic, this image logic. And so even though these images often look different, sometimes they're projected on the surface of the cortex, sometimes they are color-coded in different ways, even though they look different, in effect the same sort of thing is happening to produce these images. And so the perception arises, the appearance arises that the brain has in it functional modules. That is, that different areas of the brain are specialists in different forms of processing, and that these areas might be discrete. Even though they might be spread out in space, or there might be multiple areas that are working together, they nonetheless have a certain amount of anatomical address, localization. And we get a picture of ourselves, which I call the neurocracy. A picture in which neurocrats inhabit offices in the neurocracy. They have addresses in these offices, and they have jobs to perform. And when called upon to perform them, the neurocrats spring into action as needed and discharge their jobs, send their responses down the line in nice interoffice envelopes and so forth. The neurocracy proceeds. But the picture of the neurocracy arises from the logic I've just described to you, the logic of image subtraction or image contrast. And I would point out that the difference image is a different image from the average image of activity overall. The totality of activity is quite a different picture from the difference image. And so the question arises of whether the difference images actually can tell the whole story here, or whether they might be blind to certain other alternatives about the way the neurocracy works. These are not methodological assumptions that are made explicitly in the research community, so much as they are built into the method that I've described itself. Two of these I'll mention very briefly. By grouping and averaging these images within blocks, we've essentially said that we expect one neurocrat or one specific team of neurocrats to be at work through the entirety of the presentation of the face. You're on duty when the face is on, you kind of go all facey, and then when the face goes away, you're off duty again. By doing the subtraction, we're assuming that that face neurocrat is only on when faces are present, that face neurocrat doesn't also come on other times, sort of maybe to help out with other tasks, or maybe because there's something underlying both face perception and other forms of perception. The reason why we won't see that is because if it's on both during the face blocks, the task blocks, and the baseline blocks, they will subtract away, they will disappear in the difference process. And so we don't know whether that might be true truth. It's not that it is true or isn't true, but that our method prevents us from perceiving these alternative possibilities. And so in that sense, the method presupposes certain kinds of outcomes, and indeed the neurocracy is the result. But if we import a little bit of philosophy, the subdiscipline of philosophy known as phenomenology, which provides which attempts to provide a precise description of conscious experience, we can see that the idea that these neurocrats would be on as long as the stimulus is on is suspect. So I have a few examples to illustrate this. The first one, example 1, is a picture of the twilight sky over Hartford during these beautiful autumn nights. Contrast this one, however, with example 2, which is a photograph of an oil-on-canvas painting called New Age Jazz. Our minimalist color field artist here has depicted a flat blue note, a kind of mellow blue note that extends from one end of the canvas to the other. This is quite a different stimulus, however, from this one, the screen that results when your Windows computer crashes all the way, the so-called blue screen of death, which is, again, quite an example from a just, blank PowerPoint slide I just threw up there in the middle of a neurophilosophy talk. And this is even indeed different from a laboratory stimulus that might be used in a color perception experiment. This last one is relevant because even in the laboratory, you are taking the stimulus, the image, the whatever, a certain way. And we never can turn off our interpretive capacity to see as, something to see as. And these turn out, in spite of their surface similarity, to be very different stimuli. The colors may stay the same, but the experiences change as time goes by. And as time goes by, they're never the same from moment to moment. In fact, it's time itself which brings about one of the grandest changes in our conscious experience of all. And here in the phenomenological tradition, I'm reaching back to Edmund Husserl primarily. The physical world is the present instant. It's what there is now and all the forces that are in play at this moment. But the world of experience extends beyond the present into a world of anticipation where we wait to see what's going to happen next, and immediate retention where we are able to retain very briefly or at great length the things that have happened. We could not imagine how we could not comprehend language if we weren't able to retain the front end of a sentence by the time we got to the back end. Our experiential world is extended in time quite beyond that very brief instant where we can't distinguish whether one thing precedes another. And that extends quite a ways back, because now you're saying, oh, no, not again. No, he made that point. Let it go. That's time, the passing of time working. So taking this very, very rapid critique into consideration, there's a call both for new experiments that I think do a better job of capturing the richness, variety, and temporal dynamics of our actual lived experiences. And along with that, methods for data analysis that don't make the neurocratic assumption up front, that don't partition the images into one category or another on the assumption that there'll be a neurocrat there to answer for them. And so, looking at both of those then, we turn first to experiments ongoing now, as I understand it, at Olin. They're looking at the effects of alcohol and other substances on skilled behaviors, of which, of course, driving is central concern. A few years ago, Carol Carvalho worked over at Olin with data in this experiment, and 2 publications at least have come out as a result of this. It's a virtual driving experiment, a video game performed inside, lying flat on your back in the scanner. One lies on one's back with a steering wheel on your stomach and a gas and brake pedal in front of you at your feet. And your job is to drive through the environment. This is a video recording of the virtual realities. It's quite nice. You can see the rear view mirror is active. You can hear the motor noises when you brake, the nose dips, and so forth. No one would confuse it with driving, but it's nonetheless an immersive and highly skilled behavior. The experiment's a little complicated. I'm going to be talking about it a bit, so I'm going to take us on a bit of a tour while the car is riding in the background there. It lasts about 9 minutes, and in each session, of which there are several sessions, there are 3 runs in which 3 conditions repeat. See, it's a little complicated. First of all, in the scanner, the first thing that happens to you is that you look at a blank screen with a fixation cross, a white cross on it. That lasts for 30 seconds. That's going to repeat 3 times in that order. Then, the screen comes up with the landscape in front of you and the command to drive. And then you step on the gas and get going in 90 seconds to get as far around the course as you can. Then, you're instructed to observe, which is as if you are moved into the passenger seat in the virtual vehicle, and the same landscape goes by, and that's the video we just saw, only this time you're not driving. And so that pattern, fixate, drive, and observe, repeats throughout the experiment 3 times with an extra fixation cross for 30 seconds at the end. While this is happening, your brain is getting imaged. Every second and a half, in the end, 375 images are collected. And these abbreviations then, as we go forward looking at this, will represent then the timeline of the experiment.